On August 14, 2011, the Fairfield Police in Ohio received a 911 emergency call. A 23-year-old young man named John Carter said his fiancée Katelyn Markham was missing. Carter told the police his girlfriend had been unreachable for 18 hours. He last saw Katelyn at 12 o'clock the previous night. In the morning, he sent messages and called her, but there was no reply from her at all. Her phone was also turned off. The police acted quickly. They went to Katelyn's rented apartment and her school, but the 21-year-old Katelyn from then on never appeared in people's sight again. After a long period of time passed, no matter how hard the investigators tried, this missing case remained without any progress. Just when the family seemed to have despaired, some clues allowed the investigators to regain confidence in solving the case. There were also a couple of individuals who donated a sum of money, hoping the police department could follow up on this case. So, with the support from various sides, could this twisted and bizarre case be successfully solved? Hello everyone, welcome to the 5 May channel. I am 5 May. Background on Fairfield and Katelyn's life. Fairfield in Ohio is a noteworthy place. It has several significant features. One outstanding aspect is its rich agricultural resources. Here it is known as the seed corn capital. According to the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program, in 2022, the violent crime rate in this area was 2.2 incidents per 1,000 residents. This level is significantly lower than the national average of 4.5 per 1,000 people. According to data from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Fairfield has had relatively few missing persons in recent years. Since 2018, there have only been a handful of missing reports, and among them, 8 people have been safely recovered. However, it was in this relatively peaceful place that Katelyn Markham mysteriously disappeared. Born on August 16, 1990, Katelyn grew up in Hamilton, Ohio. Because of her studies, she was now living in an apartment in Fairfield. Her university period was very fulfilling. Interested in creativity and design, she chose graphic design as her major. To alleviate the tuition burden, she also worked part-time at a bridal shop. Katelyn had a cheerful personality and was someone who strictly demanded of herself in everything. This also made the people around her trust her very much. In 2010, the two got engaged. She originally planned, after completing her studies in 2011, to move to Colorado with her fiancé to live. This intimate couple had already been together for 6 years. Boyfriend Carter said he had absolutely no premonition that a tragedy was quietly approaching. Just 3 days before his fiancé's 21st birthday, Carter last saw his fiancée. Carter recalled that at midnight on the 13th, he parted with her at her apartment. The next whole day, he was unable to contact her. Carter fell into inexplicable fear. He also quickly contacted Katelyn's father, David. As soon as the phone connected, Carter immediately screamed into the phone, "Katelyn's missing!" The initial investigation at the apartment. When Katelyn's father, David, heard the news of his daughter's disappearance, he hurriedly rushed to his daughter's residence. There, detectives from the Fairfield Police Department had already intervened in the investigation. Female detective Rebecca Oman briefly introduced the situation to this father. Owen said that after they entered Katelyn's apartment, they began a thorough investigation. This female officer carefully checked every corner of the room. She found that the items in the room were placed relatively neatly. She did not see any signs of struggle. The doors and windows also had no traces of forced entry. The bedroom door was closed. After opening the door, everyone discovered that Katelyn's dog, Murphy, was already very impatient. The father told the detective that his daughter never locked the dog in a particular room, because Murphy would go in and out of the bathroom to relieve itself on its own. Originally in the center of Katelyn's bed, he discovered a suspicious thing. Her keys and purse were carelessly thrown on the bed. According to the boyfriend's description, the last time Katelyn was seen was at midnight. This was very unreasonable because, according to reason, no one, when about to go to sleep at night, would still carelessly throw their keys and purse on the bed. Detective Owen, through visiting Katelyn's relatives and friends, discovered that Katelyn was a model of regular living. Her personality was absolutely not that of a girl who would leave without saying goodbye. Especially as an excellent art student, in 3 weeks she was about to graduate from school. Moreover, she and her fiancé had already planned to go to Colorado to live together. Because fiancé Carter was the last person to see Katelyn, he underwent multiple polygraph tests twice in succession, but the authorities did not disclose the results. After all, it was still too early to draw any conclusions now. In addition, the detective also required him to undergo a special voice stress analysis test. We will carefully analyze the results of this part later. At the same time, the police searched places where Katelyn might appear, but did not find any trace of her. Search efforts and discovery of the body. Time passed like this for over a year, during which the family posted missing person notices everywhere and mobilized volunteers to search for the missing girl in all directions, but they never obtained any results. Just when the surrounding people seemed to have forgotten there was a missing person, someone's unintentional discovery brought the case back into people's view. On April 7, 2013, a couple who made a living by recycling scrap metal for money in a remote abandoned landfill in Franklin County, Indiana, discovered some human skull and teeth. This immediately aroused the police's alertness. They quickly searched nearby and subsequently discovered some human bones. An officer said in an interview that they could basically confirm it was Katelyn before the dental identification results came out, because they saw that the shape of the teeth in one of Katelyn's photos completely matched the submitted jawbone. Sure enough, the identification results confirmed that it was Katelyn, who had been missing for 20 months. The location where the remains were found belonged to Indiana, but it was obviously at the border of 2 states because it was only 25 miles away from Katelyn's apartment in Ohio. Although Katelyn's missing case was immediately marked as a homicide case, it seemed that because of the cross-state issue, her case never made any progress. Intervention by private detective and new clues. 3 years after Katelyn's case in 2014, anonymous Good Samaritans decided to seek justice for her case. It is said that this was an elderly couple who provided a large sum of money to support Katelyn's family, hoping that in their lifetime they could see justice served. With the injection of funds, Katelyn's father David found private detective Green. First, he collected all the files related to Katelyn's case and began to seriously study every detail related to it. He carefully listened to the 911 call recording from her boyfriend, Carter, at the time, and discovered some illogical loopholes in it. Green stated that Carter's call recording seemed insincere. In the emergency call, he said he found his girlfriend's car at the apartment. Her purse was also there, but when the operator asked if he was at the scene now, Carter said he was heading there. His words made people even more confused. If one's logic is a bit rigorous, one would think that if he hadn't arrived at his girlfriend's residence yet, how did he know Katelyn's car was still there and her purse wasn't missing. Additionally, Detective Green pointed out that before dialing the emergency call, Carter went shopping at a grocery store. If a person was already anxious to a certain degree about his girlfriend's disappearance as he appeared in the call, where would he have the interest to run to the store first? Wouldn't a normal person head straight to the girlfriend's apartment? Okay, and you guys didn't have an argument or anything? Not at all? Additionally, this emergency call had another suspicious point. The operator asked Carter in the call if there was any conflict between the two of them. Carter categorically said no. But according to Detective Green's interviews, Katelyn's best friend said that 2 days before her disappearance, she and Carter argued fiercely. The lawyer hired by Katelyn's family, after carefully listening to Carter's emergency call, stated that as a former firefighter and emergency care personnel, he believed people dial 911 to seek emergency rescue or help, but Carter in the call seemed more like notifying relevant people that his girlfriend had an accident. And the Sacred Heart Festival is going on right up the street, and there's a lot of questionable people there. After listening to this recording, the lawyer even pointed out that Carter even told the police that a party was held on the street opposite the apartment last night, and there were many suspicious people there. He hinted that bad people from the carnival might have taken his girlfriend away. Carter's behavior was very erratic. He deliberately led the police's thinking there. According to reports, Carter's voice stress analysis test resulted in an inconclusive outcome. For the 2 polygraph tests he underwent after the incident, the police did not release the results to the public. After all, at that time, Katelyn had just gone missing, and all revelations seemed a bit premature. Private Detective Green continued to search for clues. He discovered that the place where Katelyn's body was found was actually an illegal dumping site, which meant only a few people knew that location. Immediately after, he had a shocking discovery. Carter's family actually owned a residence near the landfill. Green believed this was not a coincidence. Extending from the small road of this landfill, one could see a main road, and that main road was the necessary path for Carter to return to his own home. Katelyn was hidden in Ohio, but her body was dumped in Indiana. These actions all showed the criminal was cautious and meticulously deliberate in adding difficulty to solving the case. The detective then focused on a boy named Brad. This boy named Brad was with Carter at Katelyn's apartment on the night of her disappearance, but he left the apartment a step earlier than Carter. Upon deep digging, Green discovered that after the police announced the discovery of Katelyn in 2013, Brad quickly sold his cherished car. He had easily called this car his baby. Brad, in a later interrogation, explained that he sold the car because he urgently needed to go to North Carolina. It was a 1997 green sedan. On the night of the incident, Brad had driven it to attend a party. The detective found the car in an emerging topic in Ohio and conducted a luminol test on the car. They discovered blood reactions in the car's trunk. But since the test time was already 4 years later, Green said the car had obviously been treated with a large amount of cleaning agents, and cleaning agents would severely destroy DNA evidence in the blood. 4 years of scorching summers and cold winters had already destroyed these evidences to the point of being unusable. Although Private Detective Green strongly suspected that Brad had participated in the murder, the police did not agree with his statement. However, the police stated that the case is still under investigation. Here we can also see full of regrets. The report in the detective's hands was delayed by 4 years. Even if he proved there was blood in the car, he couldn't prove whose it was. Contradictions in Carter's statements. Subsequently, the detective obtained important evidence from Katelyn's phone records that night. These records contradicted Carter's previous statements somewhat. Carter, under his mother's accompaniment, accepted the investigation from Green's team.
Hey, John, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, been a while. I do believe that I had sent her a message before I went to bed, but according to the Fairfield police, or pulling my phone records, I didn't send her anything that I could assure that I had sent her a message.
According to Carter's interrogation records, he had sent a greeting text to his girlfriend on the second morning, but the detective did not find such a text record in the phone records. Carter insisted that he did send a text to his girlfriend. At this point, Carter's mom pointed out that he found no record of Carter's 911 call that day in the records. The data might have had a technical failure.
That's a call we know he made. Nobody's questioning that. And yet it doesn't show up. How can we say that just because something else isn't showing up that there wasn't something else?
Another suspicious point pointed out by the investigator was that when Carter went to Katelyn's residence, he was calling his friend Matt the whole time. And after hanging up, 30 seconds later, he called Katelyn's father David with a panicked voice to inform him of his daughter's disappearance. David Markham, 38 seconds after you hung up with Matt. You and I had even had time to go in the house with 38 seconds. If you're in the parking lot, you would have had a chance to even go into Katelyn Rome in 3. Green stated that when Carter called his friend Matt, he was still in the car. At that time, he was still on the street. He estimated it would take at least a few minutes to park and then entered the apartment. So, in just 38 seconds, he simply couldn't enter the room to check for abnormalities and make the hair-raising call to David. The timeline presented chaotic information. According to the detective's analysis, Carter lied. All clues indicated that Carter couldn't have done it. Although Carter began to deny, saying he couldn't remember the exact order of those calls at the time, the black and white evidence could reveal the truth and help him find the lost memory. Based on the series of digs into minor details, Detective Green finally concluded that before Carter entered the room, he already knew Katelyn had met with misfortune. Differences between private and police investigations. The private detective's investigation results had huge differences from the police's investigation. Katelyn's family therefore felt frustrated. They believed that the Fairfield police could have had decisively reacted in some possible key evidence places, like Brand's car, but they chose to ignore it. Katelyn's father, David, suspected that perhaps some information exchange barriers hindered the case's solving. So the family held a press conference on December 18, 2015, urging the Fairfield police to transfer the case investigation to the Butler County Sheriff's Office. This father also requested Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones to lead the investigation. But Jones decided to closely cooperate with the previous police department instead of completely taking over. On August 16, 2016, Katelyn's 27th birthday, her relatives and friends gathered at a movie theater in Springfield to watch a documentary together. The documentary completely told Katelyn's story. Everyone hoped the documentary could bring more clues to the police and let more people know about Katelyn's tragedy. On November 15, 2016, the Fairfield police linked another case that happened 2 years ago. In 2014, a 15-year-old girl, Jones, was murdered. The The police arrested a suspect, but in the final trial stage, the man was released due to insufficient evidence. The police began to suspect that Katelyn and this girl's murders might be by the same perpetrator. They also stated that both cases are still under investigation. In July 2019, another 23-year-old girl, Allie, disappeared. The police once again went all out to collect clues. But unfortunately, on August 24, a month later, her body was found. Like the previous Katelyn, there weren't many clues. The police arrested a suspect named Michael. Nearby, David saw these news and excitedly stated that this must also be the murderer of Katelyn, and even the previous Jones should be his victim. But just a few days later, the police held a news conference of about 10 minutes. They stated that suspect Michael had no relation to Katelyn's case, but Michael was subsequently sentenced to 7 years in prison. On January 23, 2020, the Butler County Prosecutor's Office appointed Michael G. Moser as chief investigator. Michael started from that year's landfill and drove to the apartment where Katelyn lived. He discovered there were actually 2 roads to get there. He also interviewed Carter's father at a nearby property. Carter had previously revealed that he and Katelyn sometimes attended parties there. Carter also had a friend named Jonathan who lived nearby. When interviewing Jonathan, the detective inadvertently discovered black plastic sheets discarded in his backyard that were unusually similar to the material wrapping Katelyn's body. After comparison, they found these were indeed similar to the material wrapping Katelyn, but not completely matching. Through consulting experts, the investigators discovered this was a very professional building material. Usually, people who use it are professionals, and this material is also very durable. This is why Katelyn's body, after 20 months, could still be discovered. Even the flowing water over time did not erode the fabric. Key progress and polygraph results. On January 28, 2021, Katelyn's fiancé Carter was once again required to undergo a polygraph test. This time's investigation result was that his answers were highly deceptive. The police simultaneously announced that his previous 2 test results were also deceptive. On March 29th and 30th, 2022, the detective interviewed 2 teenage boys respectively. They were Katelyn's neighbors. On the night Katelyn disappeared, the 2 teenage boys sneaked out of home to go to the carnival at Sacred Heart Church. The 2 boys stated that they passed by Katelyn's apartment and saw 2 cars parked there, one of which was Carter's red Ford car. The boys stated that they remembered around 2 a.m. seeing that red Ford turn off its headlights, drive onto the driveway, then enter the garage. After entering the apartment's garage, the car subsequently turned off the engine, stayed for a while, then left. Driving at night with headlights off is in itself a big warning in the eyes of law enforcement. Through inquiry, they discovered the car stayed in the garage for about 5 to 15 minutes, then left. On April 14, 2022, the police again interviewed Carter's friend Jonathan. He was Carter's friend who grew up together from childhood. As early as 2011 and 2012, he had been interviewed by the police. The police unexpectedly discovered that this time, Jonathan changed his statement and had obvious lying traces. On December 22, 2022, the detective interviewed a private investigator. This detective stated that not long after Katelyn disappeared, Carter had approached him, asking if he would be interested in intervening to investigate a missing case. During this, Carter inquired in detail about from what angles he, as a detective, would start this case. The detective clearly remembered that when mentioning Katelyn, Carter used the past tense at that time, which indicated he already knew Katelyn had been killed. But Katelyn was discovered by people only 20 months later. Arrests and final evidence. All clues pointed in one direction. Katelyn's fiancé Carter was the suspect. On February 17, 2023, the police applied for a search warrant and searched Carter's mother's former residence because before 2021, Carter had been living there. People discovered angel portraits in the woods as well as related surrealistic love poems. These poems were about death, so they believed this was done to commemorate Katelyn. It was also on the same day that the first arrest in Katelyn's case unfolded. Carter's friend Jonathan was arrested for perjury and deceiving investigators. More than a month later, on March 22, 2023, John Carter was also arrested by the police. His first request after arrest was to chat with the detective, but later he changed his mind and decided to see a lawyer. Carter insisted he was innocent and posted a $1 million bail to be released pending trial. The detective found a large amount of writing and poems in Carter's home, all without exception on the themes of love and death. Obviously, awaiting him would be a murder trial. Here is an excerpt of a relatively representative poem. Deep in my heart, I love him, but you want him dead, but I love him, so he must die. There were also some scrawled words on the door showing, I used the key to open your heart to cut your wrist. Katelyn's father David expressed relief at the police's actions, but he also said the matter still hasn't settled. He disclosed some information about the relationship between Katelyn and Carter. He said Katelyn planned to go to Colorado alone because her partner had no sense of responsibility. He not only didn't know how to live and save money, but also took no responsibility for any of their expenses. Katelyn had already revealed her desire to end this relationship. In April 2023, some information related to this case was disclosed. It is said that John Carter, together with another man, disposed of Katelyn's body. The police are seeking a search warrant intending to search his mother's house to see if there are also black plastic bags similar to building materials. The disclosed materials also include that the day after Katelyn was reported missing, the police discovered red vertical scratches on her boyfriend John Carter's body. Carter said it was caused by shaving, but the police said this is indeed not a very convincing reason because they investigated that friends who were with Carter and Katelyn the night before the disappearance stated they had not seen any scratches on Carter before. It is said that Katelyn originally planned to move to Colorado with Carter to live, but she was tired of Carter's laziness and decided to break up. For this, John's mother even provided a credit card with no limit, but it was refused by Katelyn. Katelyn's friend stated that before the disappearance, she expressed a feeling of being trapped. She had also expressed worry about Carter to her friend because the other party used prohibited substances and had some non-traditional demands. All the details we discussed above could possibly become favorable evidence when Carter is tried. At the current stage, John Carter insists he is innocent. His trial is set for June 2024. A case tracked for 11 and a half years before charges were brought is filled with the hard work of several investigators. Hope the evidence the police hold doesn't disappoint the court's jury, because if not for the devil, Katelyn's life might still bloom immensely. The solving process of these cases can be said to be twisted and bizarre. Through Katelyn's story, everyone can also get a glimpse and understand that America's justice system is actually not as perfect as people imagine. If not for obtaining donations from good people, hiring private detectives, the family pressuring the police, and other links taking turns, as well as producing films being widely promoted, I'm afraid the bad guy would forever get away with it. Katelyn's family also wouldn't wait for the day justice is served. Trial outcome and justice. In the current stage, as of November 2025, John Carter initially insisted on his innocence, but he pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter in June 2024. The trial took place at the Butler County Common Pleas Court. On July 18, 2024, Carter was sentenced to 3 years in prison, the maximum for this charge. As of November 2025, Carter has served a little more than a year and is seeking early release from prison. A hearing on his motion for judicial release was held but continued to January 9, 2026 after back and forth between the defense and prosecutors. The case's solving process was indeed twisted and bizarre. Through Katelyn's story, everyone can also get a glimpse and understand that the American judicial system is not as perfect as imagined. If not for the donations from kind people, hiring private detectives, family pressuring the police in turns, and making films widely publicized, probably the bad person would forever roam free, and Katelyn's family wouldn't wait for the day justice is stretched. So the question comes, everyone thinks, does John Carter have guilt? If guilty, what punishment awaits him? Welcome everyone to actively express in the comment area. Well, today's story is told here. If you like my channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks again. See you next issue.